Let's take you away from politics for a moment and bring you this story. If Europe passes anti-hunting legislation, it will have devastating consequences for tourism and livelihoods in Southern Africa. Now, that's the warning from the Southern Africa Community Leaders Network. It's to visit Europe and the UK to make its voice heard in parliamentary bodies there. Also involved in the campaign is Resource Africa SA, and its CEO, Leslie Jansen, joins us now to talk more about this. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Leslie. Before we get into the details of this particular issue, perhaps a broad understanding of what exactly is currently happening around this issue.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. What's currently happening is the UK, Italy and Belgium are all proposing laws that are aimed at undermining hunting tourism in Africa. And all of this is done in the name of biodiversity conservation. And they want to do this by banning hunters from their countries from bringing their trophies, the remains of hunted animals, home with them. And if they do this, there will be many rural African communities that will be seriously affected in terms of livelihoods by these laws.
What is the reasoning that these European countries have provided in the decision that they're moving towards?
From what we're understanding, the reasoning is that it's basically for purposes of biodiversity conservation, but it is done in a way where it is totally disconnected and removed from the realities of communities in Africa living with these resources. And so what a lot of communities in Southern Africa has done, they've come together and they've decided that they will, as a delegation, actually go to the UK as well as the EU Parliament, the European Parliament, to speak to European policymakers and UK policymakers to inform them that biodiversity conservation in Africa, it involves communities living with, sustainably using and managing this wildlife and living off its revenue. And that paradigm seems to not have been part of the approach in these laws being conceived.
No, absolutely. And I just want us to talk more about the communities that benefit from this kind of a tourism attraction that has really been in South Africa for decades, or Southern Africa. The communities that benefit from this. And of course, there's also job creation and many other benefits that communities would be losing out on if this happens.
Yeah, quite correct. African communities and hunting, it has been deeply part of the culture in the region. The African communities have lived with wildlife for generations, for centuries even. African communities have practiced wildlife conservation by using wildlife in sustainable ways for their own sustenance, of which hunting is quite central. And they've always been able to sustainably manage these hunting practices as communities. And today they are organized in these conservancies, which is very well run, placed areas which manages these hunting tours. And the animals targeted for hunting are specifically selected. Most are old and older males, and many are in some ways problematic to their populations. Nothing goes to waste. The meat is often given to communities as important sources of food and proteins, and the hides are valuable too. And so we're finding that the animal welfare campaigners are leading anti-hunting campaigns that lawmakers respond to living in the global north and are totally removed, as I said, from the African lives and wildlife, undermining this relationship.
No, absolutely. And of course, we can't deny that those concerns about sustainable hunting are valid. And I mean, one is interested to find out in terms of what conversations are you having as an organization with those kind of stakeholders to say that actually we are doing this sustainably and we are not doing it in any way that will endanger the ecosystems that currently exist.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, not only is this delegation planning to, and it's a big investment for these communities through the Community Leaders Network to come together and take the time to actually travel to the UK, to the European Parliament, to speak to policymakers so that we make real the realities of rural African communities on the ground. But there's an extensive campaign also happening currently that Resource Africa, in partnership with this network of community leaders, are setting up in various ways, engaging their national states within Southern Africa to inform them about to sort of ensure that there's advocacy in place to make them aware of these impending laws. There's also engagement with different media persons across the EU and the UK to also ensure that that sort of lobbying at that level is as well. There's also African communities are also organizing themselves locally to ensure that there's awareness. So at multi-levels, there's really this engagement and strategy from the Community Leaders Network to ensure that there's awareness around this issue.
No, absolutely. And of course, this is going to be absolutely critical, given the fact that the tourism industry suffered quite devastatingly during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic.
No, you're quite correct. And phototourism, for instance, is not able to be a form of sustenance in all of Southern Africa communities. Although hunting, the revenue from trophy hunting in, for instance, Namibia is up to 100%. Communities are benefiting from this revenue. In Namibia, Zambia, Tanzania, as well as Zimbabwe, the revenue generated is up to $16.35 million per annum. You've had things like clinics, schools, bursaries, many community development initiatives have been able to be run successfully and impacted livelihoods over the years. So we cannot afford in the African region for this revenue to be undermined in any way, given how communities have been able to adapt over time and convert these practices into revenue where they're able to help rebuild their lives after our terrible history. Yeah.
No, obviously, and of course it is a difficult conversation that you are having with these European bodies, but ultimately the middle ground that you are hoping to reach, if there is one.
Well, the middle ground we're hoping to reach is there is a clear ask, and the clear ask is that, this thing of trophy hunting, we understand the sensitivities around it. The focus for us should be on the communities and what they are able to do with it. It's sustainable, it's regulated, it's well managed, and we are asking British and lawmakers to take into account how these laws will be impacting their livelihoods. We're asking, the middle ground is, let's have a conversation. Let's allow these communities to be able to voice and participate in your legislative processes without undermining your own sovereignty, but also understand and take the time to respect African voices, to respect what we are building, to respect our rights, to sustainably manage and utilize our resources. It's also important to note the African Commission recently passed a resolution where it supported these communities' rights to sustainably use, sustainably manage and conserve, namely affirming their rights to their resources, which includes hunting. And so that's a very, very important resolution that the African Commission has passed. And we're asking the middle ground is for respect of those rights and those decisions. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Ms. Leslie Jansen, joining us there from Resource Africa, talking about the hunting economy and really what it does for communities and the decision that European bodies are currently looking at, the impact that that will have on those communities and those local economies there.